I'm Daryl Brown. Welcome to Shades of Us, a show that explores multicultural identities and how they intersect. We're here in New York City's West Village, next to a bronze sculpture called The Family. The artwork shows two adults holding up three children, symbolizing the unity and support of a harmonious family. In this episode, we'll meet New Yorkers who are sharing customs, passing down traditions, and reflecting on the personal definition of family. Stay tuned for these stories right after this. According to an August 2024 Research and Markets Business Report, the global market for direct-to-consumer genetic testing was estimated at $1.3 billion in 2023 and is projected to reach over $3 billion by 2030. While genetic testing is connecting family members from all over the world, it also raises concerns about data breaches and personal privacy. Yet beyond these challenges lies a world of discoveries. An author on the topic shares how this powerful science impacted her personally and how DNA information is helping to rewrite the American story.
We're a country of immigrants. We're a country of people who come in and they're really encouraged at a certain point in time in the past to shed that heritage, shed your religion, shed your language, shed your foods, and become true American. My name is Libby Copeland. I'm a longtime journalist and author. I wrote a book called The Lost Family, How DNA Testing is Upending Who We Are. I started writing about this topic because I was very interested in family and in how we define ourselves. It is in many ways a very American question. It's a very much a melting pot question. The nation where people have come from other places and assimilated their way out of their ethnic identities, and then all of a sudden one day they look up and they say, who am I? The recreational DNA testing industry is companies like Ancestry, 23andMe, MyHeritage, where you pay, say, $80 to spit into a tube, you send it away in the mail, and then they send it back, they send you a link some weeks later, and you open it up, and it's a pie chart, and it says, oh, you're X% this and X% that. And then you can look and see who your DNA relatives are. You kind of go into it with the idea of this is going to be fun, this is going to be exciting, it's going to augment my understanding, not it's going to completely disorient me and turn me upside down, but for a lot of people that's what happens. The book, it tells a lot of stories. It tells a lot of very American stories. But the main narrative is about a woman named Alice. Alice discovers her DNA isn't what she thought. She understands herself to be entirely Irish and from the British Isles in terms of her ancestry. And when she tests, she finds she's half Ashkenazi Jewish. Over the process of this 2.5-year journey, she does this crazy genetic genealogy process, which is effectively needle in a haystack. And despite all odds, what she eventually was able to uncover was that back in 1913, when her father was born, he was born in an early maternity hospital when the protections were not terribly good for children to be kept track of, and he was switched with another baby. So if you can imagine a tiny little guy, he's about 5'4", Alice's father, raised in a family of tall, fair giants who were all over 6 feet tall. And his counterpart, the kid who he was switched with, was this extremely tall, fair guy raised in a family where his mom was 4'9" and his dad was 5'2". And both of those sons were raised and lived out their lives and died and never knew that they had gone with the wrong family. One year, my dad gave me for the holidays a 23andMe DNA testing kit, and it sat on top of my microwave for a long time because I was like, this seems like a big decision. I don't know if I want to make it. And then I actually started writing this story about this topic. And I was like, I can't write about this if I don't know what the experience is like. So I took that kit and I spit into it and I sent it away. What we found was that there was a long-lost relative in Sweden who was a hell of a genealogist. She was really bound and determined to figure out what had happened to certain members of her family who'd gone to America. And that turned out to be our ancestor. My great-grandmother. My great-grandmother came over from southern Sweden in the 1890s. She was a poor woman who lived on a farm, and she worked as a domestic for most of her life. She helped raise my dad and his sister and his older brother, and she was a very important person in their family. In 2019, we went to Sweden to go meet Yvonne and her mother. We sat, we had pastries and coffee, and we managed to find a historian who was able to take us around to certain points in my great-grandmother's life. And so we go to southern Sweden and we get to see this school that she attended and the church that she worshiped at, they are still there. And I just had this sense of like connection, but also like my mind was being exploded. She moves to this small, teeny tiny town where I still live. She meets this guy randomly who's from Germany. They wind up having children. And because of their sort of like spur of the moment decisions and where they happen to get a job and who they happen to fall in love with and where they happen to live and what, rent they could afford, because of all those like by chance decisions, I'm now living in this town where my children are like 5th generation. And it is so momentous in my life, and yet you can drive yourself crazy thinking about all the little accents of history that have made you who you are. What I found is that people must define family for themselves. That is not just your prerogative and your responsibility, but it's something that no one else can do for you.
According to a 2022 National Council for Adoption survey, in the U.S., about 150,000 adoptions occur each year, which is about 1 in 35 children. Family comes in many forms, including adoptive ones. And although they don't share biological DNA, these families forge connections that can be as strong as any hereditary bonds. One adoptee explores these bonds and the dynamics of Chinese adoptions on her podcast, a group that will no longer expand as China has officially banned foreign adoptions.
This is my family, so that's my dad on the right, my mom and my oldest brother Terry, and my middle brother Kevin, and then me. My name is Tara Shen Nolan. I grew up in the United States, but I came here when I was age 4 from China through international adoption. Before the age of 4, really. Any memories that I have, it's ones that are provided to you or like through narratives, when people like show you books or pictures or tell you stories. I grew up knowing I was adopted, for sure. So my parents and my brothers are both considered Caucasian, so it's an international transracial adoption. I do remember growing up, I would go to Chinese school, Chinese language school, I would go to Chinese dance. So my mom and dad did immerse me into the culture of like being like, you are Chinese, this is something that's always a part of who you are. I'm definitely very familiar with like fighting that identity of like, I'm Chinese, but I'm also American, and I also have American parents, but I don't have the Chinese. I feel like we all have that kind of desire to know like, who do we come from? Who do we look like? And that part has been a big influence of like, it'd be nice to know like, was it my mother or my father that I got? Like this particular feature, is it a personality? I have gone back and forth with the decision about going to find birth parents. I was like, it's not gonna answer any questions really for me. It's just gonna bring up more, and then it just brings a whole nother relationship that like, do I wanna maintain? If I find them, that's if I find them. But I have had moments where I had more of a desire to find them. So I submitted DNA. My dad actually, when I was 18, he was like, hey, you're 18 now, if you'd like to, if you ever have had interest, this is something that you can do. So I've submitted DNA to different places, but I have not had the desire really to like go back and search so actively. Welcome to ABC Adoptees Born in China podcast. I'm Tara, and today I am with a guest who went to China recently and is going to talk about their search. I was looking for podcasts about adoption, And then I was like, where's the one about Chinese adoptees? Because I really want to know what do you guys feel? And I mean, there's so many of us out there. So I ended up creating a podcast. Tell me more about yourself, your adoption. The podcast was a way to reach out. So that experience of being able to talk to I've talked to many adoptees now, especially Chinese adoptees, has helped process in a way like, oh, that part of your experience I can relate to because I've also experienced it. As far as feelings of happiness that I associate with being adopted, I really think it's community is the biggest thing that stands out. Like even apart from just like us adoptees coming together and talking, which I actually really only discovered recently in probably the past 4 years, but growing up, like there was always community, like those supporting my parents or those supporting our family. Like community in itself has always seemed to be something that brings happiness. A big negative that I have is like abandonment will always be a situation or an issue that I feel like I will face, and it will be a challenge consistently throughout everything. Relationships, how I approach making a decision. Although I feel like in the sense of like the abandonment is like, well, I have nothing to lose now because I've already lost something as a core part of me when I was really young that I didn't have a part in. So I feel like I'm spinning the negative. If I had anything to share with younger adoptees, I would tell them that it's going to be okay. I know that's a cliche, but I really think the big one is like it's going to be okay, and find ways that you can talk and express yourself. Because I think limiting yourself from being able to express yourself or talk about it or feel like you can't share is really what keeps you like stewing all the feelings inside or really internalizing all that pain too. I would tell prospective adoptive parents that know that communication is important. I think having an open dialogue from when you adopt, even when they're really young, because children internalize it too, to as they get older, like having the space essentially to communicate and talk with your child about adoption. I feel like what's most important during the holidays, and especially being an adoptee, is find those spaces or find those places or people that make you feel like you're connected and family. Not necessarily the family that adopted you, because not everybody has the best of relationships with their adoptive family in that sense. But I do feel like it would be good if you can like find others that you do feel more connected to. Thank you for listening to ABC. You can reach me at Adoptees Born in China Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, or adoptedbabiesfromchina@gmail.com.
For arroz a banda, we use rice, tomato, onions, cuttlefish, squid, monkfish, and head-on shrimp. In my household, it just happens that my husband is Colombian, my daughter is American, and I am Spanish, so I am the only person who has grown up with that tradition, and I really want to pass that on, especially to my daughter, as an important piece of heritage. When I was a child, paella every Sunday. Paella was religiously there, even if it was just my mom and I, or my dad and I, paella was gonna happen on a Sunday. I came to the United States 11 years ago. I met my husband soon after coming here, and I had a daughter 15 months ago.
Jose and I became fathers together. Our children were born 5 months apart from each other. My name is Andre Zucker. I'm from the Bronx, New York, but now I live in Brooklyn.
When I knew that I was going to have a daughter, that became very present, that I really had to prepare a paella. It's hard to make a paella in New York City, very difficult.
Jose wants to make a paella in New York City the way he did as a child. And that was making a paella that was this big. That means that he needs to build an open fire and put a gigantic pan on top of it.
Honestly, I don't know what other way to prepare a paella. This is one of those things that will make me feel home. Because making a paella is about connecting with other people, and what's more about connecting and providing than being a father.
My wife and Jose are from the same region of Spain. This tradition for Jose is very important to my family as well, because my son does have the same heritage as Jose's daughter, and I want him to grow up with those traditions of his culture, even if I have to learn them. Being a father is the hardest thing I've ever done, and it's the biggest journey I've ever taken. And what I quickly realized is that I can't take this journey alone. If Jose needs to do this to be a father, then I want to be a part of that because I need Jose so I can be the father I want to be.
In the early days when I moved to the United States, clearly I was not able to make the paella, and that made me feel very homesick. It made me feel very sad that I was not able. I got used to it, but it made me feel homesick, yes. I want her to have those memories of having a space that's protected to connect with her family, to connect with both of us, to connect with her friends, to have a good time. Every father wants to pass traditions to their family and to their kids. That's why it's very important for me to cook paella every Sunday.
We'll be back after this break. What does it mean to be a third-generation owner of a family business? Our next guest discusses being part of an iconic 70-year legacy in New York City that has roots in the Ukrainian community.
My name is Jason Burchard. I'm the third-generation owner and proprietor of Veselka Restaurant here in the East Village of New York. I never really truly understood what my father and my grandfather had to do and all the challenges they had. You have to wear many hats in this business. I mean, it's not just a restaurant owner. You got to play part psychologist, part social worker, part banker, part guarantor. Just in being respectful of people's needs. My grandfather's name was Volodymyr Domrachwal. He's a Ukrainian immigrant that escaped Russian oppression in the late 1940s. When he started this business in 1954 as a little Ukrainian-style bodega, he also was tasked to feed the children of the Ukrainian community, and we still proudly do that to this day. My father took over the business when he was a young man in his 20s, and I learned a lot of valuable lessons over the years working side by side with him. And now I'm here running the business as a Ukrainian American. It was never an intention of me working in the family business. I studied economics and business with the idea that, and honestly, I was going to be involved possibly in the finance world. Realized very quickly upon graduating that that wasn't my true calling. My father offered me a position until I figured it out in 1990 when I graduated. And that's when I started, and we took on one of the initiatives early on was to open 24 hours. Ever since then, until 2020 in COVID, we've been proud serving 24-hour restaurant. Veselka has been very fortunate going through a growth mode. Our main location is on 2nd Avenue and 9th Street, been known for many years as Little Ukraine. It's a much larger Ukrainian enclave and diaspora that lived here, that migrated here in the 40s and 50s. As all neighborhoods in New York, things go through change, but we're still holding down the fort, staying strong to our Ukrainian roots. In the past 2 years, we've opened up a spot in Grand Central, in the dining course on the lower level. We've opened up another retail-facing restaurant space in Williamsburg. All of our foods and soups are prepared in our commissary space and shipped to our locations, whether it's here at 2nd Avenue, Grand Central, and feeds our Williamsburg location as well. Working here now through high school and now into my mid-50s, it's a labor of love. I really do connect to my family roots and what it meant for my grandfather to keep this vision alive. At our family dinners, food is always talked about. I mean, we always criticize or think about innovative, interesting new ideas, what we can bring to the restaurant that we hadn't done in the past. And we are definitely Ukrainian-centric, but we also, we understand that our demographic here wants to see some American fare as well. So we've added things that are either, borderline Ukrainian, Eastern European, or American-based macaroni and cheese or chicken pot pie, are not things you would see on a Ukrainian menu, or things like beef stroganoff, which can be more German or Eastern European, but not Ukrainian, are all now staples on the menu. The meaning of serving Ukrainian soul food, as we call it, or Ukrainian comfort food for 70 years is something very special to me. It's the same recipes that my grandparents started and we've only expanded on. And I think that resonates with the customers that continue to come back. Some of my fondest memories growing up in this culture, I remember my grandmother getting up very early and starting working on making pierogies by hand herself, or her making borscht. Pierogies of being one of the staples here in Veselka. It's a Ukrainian handmade dumpling, Eastern European variety of fillings. The standard fillings are potato or cheese or sauerkraut mushroom. We've expanded on that over the years. We make thousands of them a day, enjoyed regularly, boiled, fried, smothered in onions, sour cream. I mean, it's just, it's a true delight if you haven't had them already. We have a saying, Veselka means literally rainbow in Ukrainian. And we have a big slogan in our restaurant, in big red letters, Veselka is love. Veselka has transcended over many ethnicities over the years. I think maybe because of where we are in its heyday in the 50s and 60s, people wanted Ukrainian food. We're very fortunate to be in this location. St. Mark's, bars and clubs, and very heavily student-based with NYU and so forth. I would say roughly 50% of my staff is of Ukrainian or Eastern European background, but I have people from Bangladesh, Africa, South America, Philippines. I started a historical documentary about the history of the restaurant and familial connections. The name of our documentary is called Veselka, the rainbow on the corner of the center of the world. In the documentary, it shows the challenges we faced running this type of business during a time of conflict. With the onset of the war, the trauma that my staff was suffering and the outpouring of love that I was receiving, I became a voice, an advocate, not only for Ukraine, but for the New York City population. I love what I do. I've been doing this for more than 40 years. We're continuing to grow our brand. I've always been humbly understanding of what Veselka is to the community, that Veselka has got a name outside of the New York City area, and that the familial business that started here 70 years ago is still considered something that people can enjoy if they have the opportunity to eat a Veselka.
That's our show. If you want to know more about the guests we featured, check out our Instagram page at Shades of Us TV and online at tv.cuny.edu. You can now download the app and watch CUNY TV from wherever you are. I'm Darryl Brown. See you next time on Shades of Us.